Have you ever noticed what happens when someone refuses to play by the rules? They don't call them fearless. They don't call them brilliant. They call them insane. Why? Because the moment you stop asking for permission, the people who built their comfort on your obedience begin to panic. Now they're whispering behind your back, something's wrong with them. They've changed. They're unpredictable. But what if that tactical insanity isn't madness at all? What if it's the strategy that finally broke the chains holding you down? The world has always feared people it couldn't control. The ones who smile under pressure, stay calm in chaos, and move like they already know the ending. They call it crazy because they can't decode it. See, the Joker was never dangerous because he laughed. He was dangerous because he stopped caring about the script everyone else was following. He understood that the greatest weapon isn't strength. It's becoming impossible to predict. When your enemies can't understand your next move, they start creating stories to explain your silence. They mistake discipline for obsession, confidence for arrogance, and calculated moves for insanity. So today, we're going to uncover why they're saying you've completely outplayed the game. Why the same people who laughed at your dreams are now studying your every move. Why your transformation has become their biggest mystery. This isn't about losing your mind. It's about making the world question its own. Welcome to SIX Kyle I Ansedai. They're saying you just out. Stay until the end. Because sometimes the greatest victory comes when everyone else thinks you've gone completely crazy. The moment you stop shrinking yourself to make other people comfortable, something strange begins to happen. The room changes. Conversations pause when you walk in. Eyes follow you without you noticing. The people who once ignored you suddenly have opinions about you. They don't know exactly what changed, but they can feel it. And because they can't explain your confidence, they give it a label that makes them feel safe. They call it arrogance. They call it obsession. Sometimes, they even call it insanity. Think about it. The world has always been uncomfortable with people who refuse to ask for permission. As long as you doubt yourself, everyone feels relaxed. As long as you constantly seek approval, nobody feels threatened. As long as you apologize for taking up space, you fit perfectly into the system they understand. But the second you stand tall without explaining yourself, the rules seem to change. Suddenly you're too much. Suddenly you're different. Suddenly people wonder what's gotten into you. Here's the truth nobody likes to admit. Confidence forces people to compare themselves. It acts like a mirror. When someone sees you taking risks they were too afraid to take, chasing dreams they abandoned years ago, or refusing to settle for less, it reminds them of every excuse they've ever made. That's uncomfortable. And instead of asking why they feel that discomfort, it's easier to convince themselves that you've somehow lost your mind. Confidence doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It walks into a room without asking if it belongs there. It speaks without constantly worrying about being liked. It accepts failure as part of growth, instead of treating mistakes like permanent scars. To people who spend their lives hiding behind fear, that kind of behavior looks impossible. Impossible things often get mistaken for crazy things. Notice how people celebrate confidence only after it succeeds. Before success, they call it unrealistic. Before victory, they call it reckless. Before recognition, they laugh at the dreamer. But after the results arrive, those same critics suddenly describe the exact same behavior as vision, courage, and leadership. The actions never changed. Only the outcome did. That's why you can't let other people's opinions become the steering wheel of your life. If every bold decision depends on applause, you'll spend your entire existence waiting for an audience that may never clap. Real confidence is making peace with misunderstanding. It's accepting that some people will never understand your direction because they never intended to leave the road they're already on. There is something powerful about becoming comfortable with being misunderstood. You stop explaining every decision. You stop defending every choice. You stop wasting energy trying to convince people who already decided to doubt you. Instead, you invest that energy into becoming stronger, wiser, and more disciplined. Your actions begin speaking louder than your arguments ever could. The funny thing is, the louder people call you crazy, the more they watch you. They claim not to care, yet they notice every move. They criticize your ambition while secretly measuring your progress. They laugh at your confidence while wondering where you found it. That's because certainty has a strange effect on uncertainty. It attracts attention without even trying. Never confuse loud opinions with accurate opinions. Crowds have been wrong throughout history. Every breakthrough looked ridiculous before it became normal. Every innovator was questioned before they were respected. Every person who refused to follow the script was judged before they were admired. Confidence has always carried a price, and that price is temporary misunderstanding. So if they start whispering that you've changed, smile. If they say you're impossible to figure out, smile wider. And if they finally decide you've gone completely insane, well, maybe they're just realizing the game was never meant to be played by someone who already threw away the rule book with a grin that made the whole room nervous. There is something unsettling about a person who refuses to reveal every move they're about to make. In a world where people announce every goal, broadcast every plan, and seek validation before taking the first step, silence becomes a superpower. The moment you stop explaining yourself, people begin filling in the blanks with their own assumptions. They become curious, they become uncomfortable, and before long, they become distracted trying to solve a puzzle that was never meant for them. Most people are predictable because they live predictable lives. They react the same way to criticism, celebrate the same victories, complain about the same problems, and repeat the same routines every day. That's why they're easy to understand. Once someone figures out your pattern, they know exactly how to influence your emotions, your decisions, and sometimes even your future. Predictability is comfortable, but comfort rarely wins the biggest battles. Imagine playing a game of chess where your opponent announces every move before touching a piece. You wouldn't need talent to win. You'd simply prepare in advance. Life works the same way. Every time you reveal your strategy too early, you give someone the chance to prepare against it. Not because everyone is your enemy, but because people naturally adjust when they know what's coming. Surprise disappears, and with it goes one of your greatest advantages. The strongest people aren't always the loudest. Often, they're the quiet observers. They listen more than they speak. They notice details others ignore. While everyone else is busy proving themselves, they're busy improving themselves. They understand that mystery creates space. It keeps people guessing. It prevents others from placing you into a box with a label they can easily understand. When people can't predict you, they start paying closer attention. They begin wondering what you're working on. They replay your words in their minds, searching for hidden meanings that may not even exist. Your silence becomes louder than someone else's endless talking. It's fascinating how the human mind reacts to uncertainty. We naturally want answers. We crave explanations. So when someone refuses to provide them, curiosity grows stronger with every passing day. Being unpredictable doesn't mean acting recklessly or making random decisions. That's confusion, not strategy. True unpredictability comes from emotional discipline. It means refusing to react the way people expect. When they expect anger, you remain calm. When they expect panic, you remain focused. When they expect you to quit, you quietly keep moving forward. That kind of behavior disrupts expectations because it isn't driven by impulse. It's driven by intention. People often believe they understand you based on who you used to be. They assume your future will mirror your past because that's easier than accepting change. But growth destroys old patterns. Every lesson you learn changes your next decision. Every challenge you overcome reshapes your mindset. If you're truly evolving, yesterday's version of you shouldn't be able to predict tomorrow's choices. One mistake many people make is confusing attention with progress. They think every achievement needs an announcement. Every idea needs approval. Every dream needs an audience. But the more energy you spend talking about your plans, the less energy remains for actually building them. Results speak with a confidence that explanations never can. Watch what happens when you quietly improve. You disappear for a while. You work when nobody notices. You learn when nobody applauds. Then one day you return, and people act shocked by the transformation. They call it luck because they never witnessed the discipline. They call it overnight success because they ignored the invisible months that created it. The greatest advantage isn't becoming someone nobody can see. It's becoming someone nobody can accurately predict. When your actions come from purpose instead of pressure, from discipline instead of emotion, and from patience instead of impulse, you become impossible to manipulate. People stop trying to write your next chapter because every guess keeps turning out wrong. And that's when the whispers begin. What's their next move? What are they planning? They search for answers while you're already 3 steps ahead, smiling like the punchline was never the joke. It was the silence before the laughter. There is a strange kind of power in saying less than you know. Most people believe influence comes from speaking louder, explaining more, and making sure everyone understands their intentions. But the truth is, the loudest person in the room is rarely the one in control. Real power often sits quietly in the corner, watching, listening, and collecting information while everyone else rushes to fill the silence. People are uncomfortable with silence because silence forces them to think. The moment you stop responding to every criticism, every rumor, and every opinion, something unexpected happens. The people trying to provoke you become frustrated. They expected a reaction. They prepared for an argument. They wanted to pull you into their emotional storm. Instead, they find nothing but calm. That calm becomes louder than any words you could have spoken. Think about how much energy is wasted trying to defend yourself against people who already made up their minds. You explain your intentions. They question your motives. You clarify your actions. They twist your words. You prove your point. They move the goalposts. Some battles are designed so that no explanation will ever be enough. The smartest move isn't winning those arguments. It's refusing to participate in them. Silence isn't weakness. It's restraint. And restraint requires far more strength than impulsive reactions ever will. Anyone can respond in anger. Anyone can raise their voice. Anyone can fire back the moment they feel disrespected. But it takes discipline to pause, breathe, and recognize that not every attack deserves your attention. The world trains people to react instantly. A message arrives and they reply immediately. Someone insults them online, and they rush to defend themselves. A rumor starts, and they spend days trying to correct every misunderstanding. Meanwhile, the person who stays silent keeps moving forward, while everyone else is busy discussing them. They're busy building something that will eventually speak for itself. There is another reason silence is powerful. It reveals people. When you stop talking, others start talking more. They expose their fears, their insecurities, and their true intentions without realizing it. Silence creates space, and people naturally rush to fill empty space. That's when you learn who supports you, who envies you, who respects you, and who only pretended to. Imagine standing in the middle of chaos while everyone around you is shouting. One person blames. Another complains. Someone else panics. Then there's you, calm, composed, saying almost nothing. Who appears stronger? The one controlled by emotion? Or the one who controls emotion? Emotional discipline is rare because it goes against human instinct. That's exactly why it's so valuable. Many people mistake silence for surrender. They assume you've run out of answers because you've stopped speaking. They celebrate too early, believing they've won. But while they're celebrating, you're observing. While they're distracted by noise, you're preparing your next move. Sometimes silence isn't the end of the conversation. It's simply the moment before the strongest response arrives through action instead of words. History has shown that actions echo much longer than explanations. People may forget what you said, but they remember what you accomplished. Success has a fascinating way of answering questions nobody else could answer. It settles debates without raising its voice. It silences critics without demanding apologies. Results carry a confidence that words can never imitate. Don't misunderstand this. Silence doesn't mean suppressing your voice forever. There are moments when speaking up is necessary. There are times when truth deserves to be heard. But wisdom lies in knowing the difference between a conversation that creates growth and an argument that only creates more noise. Every word you choose not to waste becomes energy you can invest somewhere meaningful. The strongest minds don't feel the need to announce every thought. They understand that mystery creates respect, discipline creates confidence, and patience creates opportunities. They know that when everyone expects an emotional reaction, calmness becomes unforgettable. So let them keep talking while you keep building. Let them chase attention while you chase purpose. And if your silence starts making them nervous, smile, because nothing unsettles a noisy world more than someone who has already learned that the quietest laugh usually belongs to the one holding all the cards. The moment you decide to chase something meaningful, criticism arrives like an uninvited guest. It doesn't wait until you're successful. It doesn't wait until you've made it. It shows up the instant you begin moving in a direction that challenges other people's expectations. Some will question your choices. Others will laugh at your ambitions. A few will quietly hope you fail because your courage reminds them of the dreams they abandoned. But here's the secret most people never discover. Criticism can either become a wall that stops you or a fire that pushes you forward. The choice has always belonged to you. Most people spend their lives running away from negative opinions. They shape their decisions around avoiding judgment. They silence their ideas before anyone else has the chance to criticize them. They stay small because staying small feels safe. But safety has a hidden cost. It often demands the sacrifice of your potential. If your biggest goal is making sure nobody ever doubts you, you'll never do anything remarkable enough to matter. Think about every person who has achieved something extraordinary. At some point, they were doubted. Their vision seemed unrealistic. Their confidence looked misplaced. Their persistence appeared stubborn. The criticism wasn't proof they were on the wrong path. Sometimes it was proof they were walking a path few people had the courage to take. The problem isn't criticism itself. The problem is what you decide it means. One person hears an insult and believes it defines their worth. Another hears the same insult and treats it like background noise. The words were identical, but the outcome was completely different, because meaning is assigned by the listener, not the speaker. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with stones. Every harsh comment, every rejection, every unfair opinion becomes another stone. You can complain about how heavy the load feels, or you can use those same stones to build a staircase. The weight never disappears, but its purpose changes. That's what resilient people understand. They don't waste energy wishing life were easier. They learn how to make difficult things useful. There will always be people who misunderstand your intentions. Some criticize because they're afraid. Some because they're insecure. Others because they've built an identity around believing success belongs to someone else. Their opinions reveal more about their mindset than about your future. If someone has never built the life you want, why should their doubts become the blueprint for your decisions? One of the greatest mistakes people make is trying to answer every critic. They spend hours defending themselves, explaining their goals, and trying to convince people who never intended to believe them. That's like watering weeds while your own garden slowly dries out. Your attention is valuable. Every minute spent arguing with negativity is a minute stolen from your progress. Instead of reacting emotionally, learn to become curious. Ask yourself if there's anything useful hidden inside the criticism. Sometimes there is. Constructive feedback can sharpen your skills. Honest observations can reveal blind spots. But empty negativity deserves no permanent place in your mind. Separate lessons from insults. Keep the lesson. Throw away the insult. The strongest transformations often begin with uncomfortable moments. Rejection teaches resilience. Failure teaches strategy. Criticism teaches emotional control. Every challenge becomes training if you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as a student of experience. Suddenly, nothing is wasted. Every setback becomes another chapter in the story you're writing. People are often surprised when someone they doubted succeeds. They expected the criticism to break them. Instead, it strengthened them. Every sarcastic comment became another workout for the mind. Every dismissal became another reason to improve. Every obstacle became another opportunity to prove that persistence outlasts opinion. Don't wait for applause before believing in yourself. Crowds are unpredictable. They cheer winners today and forget them tomorrow. Build your confidence on your effort, your discipline, and your character instead. Those things remain even when the noise changes. Let criticism remind you that you're visible, but never let it decide where you're going. One day, the same voices that questioned your journey may suddenly admire your results. They won't realize they accidentally became part of your motivation. They thought they were throwing stones. But you quietly turned every one of them into another step upward. And when they ask how you stayed smiling while carrying all that weight, give them the kind of grin that makes them wonder if the joke was never on you. It was on everyone who thought they could extinguish a fire by throwing more sparks into it. The greatest battles you'll ever fight will never happen in front of an audience. They won't be fought with fists, loud arguments, or dramatic confrontations. They'll happen quietly, inside your own mind. Every single day, you'll face a choice between reacting emotionally or responding with intention. One path gives temporary satisfaction. The other builds lasting strength. The difference between ordinary people and extraordinary people often comes down to who wins that invisible battle. Most people believe intelligence is the greatest advantage. Others think it's talent, money, or opportunity. Those things matter, but none of them can consistently outperform emotional control. A brilliant person who loses control under pressure can make terrible decisions. A talented person who lets fear dictate their actions may never reach their potential. But someone who remains calm while everyone else panics gains something priceless: the ability to think clearly when it matters most. Life has a way of testing your emotions. Someone disrespects you. A plan falls apart. A trusted friend disappoints you. An opportunity slips away. In those moments, your first reaction usually isn't your best one. Anger wants revenge. Fear wants escape. Pride wants to prove a point. But emotions are temporary visitors. They shouldn't be permanent decision makers. Think of your mind as the control room of a powerful machine. Every emotion knocks on the door asking for permission to take over. Sometimes confidence arrives. Sometimes frustration. Sometimes excitement. Sometimes doubt. Wisdom doesn't mean pretending those emotions don't exist. Wisdom means deciding which one gets the keys and which one waits outside. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing they must react immediately. Society rewards speed, instant replies, instant opinions, instant judgments. But power often hides inside the pause. That brief moment between what happens to you and how you choose to respond determines the quality of your decisions. A few seconds of patience can prevent years of regret. People who know how to manipulate others understand one simple truth: if they can control your emotions, they can often influence your behavior. They provoke you because they expect anger. They criticize you because they expect insecurity. They insult you because they expect retaliation. The moment you react exactly as expected, they've quietly gained an advantage. But when you remain calm, they lose the script they were counting on. Calmness is confusing to people looking for chaos. It disrupts expectations. While they prepare for conflict, you offer composure. While they expect panic, you demonstrate patience. Suddenly, the conversation changes because they no longer know how to control someone who refuses to become emotionally predictable. Mastering the mind also means mastering your internal dialogue. Pay attention to the voice inside your head. Is it constantly reminding you of failures? Is it repeating every criticism you've ever heard? Or is it teaching you to improve without destroying your confidence? The way you speak to yourself becomes the foundation for how you face the world. If your own mind becomes your greatest enemy, no external victory will ever feel satisfying. Discipline grows stronger every time you choose purpose over impulse. You wake up when you don't feel like it. You continue learning when progress feels slow. You stay focused when distractions invite you elsewhere. None of those choices seem dramatic in the moment, but together they reshape your identity. Success is rarely built through giant leaps. It's usually created through countless moments where discipline quietly defeated emotion. Remember that not every thought deserves your trust. The mind produces doubts just as easily as it produces ideas. Fear often disguises itself as logic. Comfort disguises itself as wisdom. Excuses disguise themselves as reasonable explanations. That's why awareness matters. Observe your thoughts before obeying them. Just because a thought appears doesn't mean it deserves authority. The strongest people aren't emotionless. They simply refuse to let temporary feelings become permanent directions. They experience disappointment without surrendering. They experience fear without freezing. They experience criticism without collapsing. Their emotions exist, but they remain in the passenger seat, while purpose stays behind the wheel. Eventually, people begin noticing something different about you. They expect drama but receive calm. They expect panic but see patience. They expect excuses but witness consistency. They don't understand why nothing seems to shake your focus anymore. That's because while they were trying to win arguments with the world, you were quietly winning the only battle that truly mattered, the one inside your own mind. And when they finally realize they can no longer push your buttons, because you've rewritten the entire control panel, don't explain the trick. Just let that slow Joker smile remind them that the hardest mind to defeat is the one that has already learned to laugh before the game even begins. The world quietly hands everyone a script long before they realize it. Study this. Work there. Think like everyone else. Stay inside the lines. Don't ask too many questions. Don't dream too loudly. Don't become too different, because different people make comfortable systems uncomfortable. Most never stop to ask who wrote the script in the first place. They simply follow it because everyone around them is doing the same thing. Years pass, and they mistake routine for purpose, comfort for happiness, and approval for success. The people who change their lives aren't always the smartest or the luckiest. They're often the ones who eventually decide to question the rules they accepted without thinking. They realize that not every limitation is real. Many limitations exist only because they've been repeated so often that people stop challenging them. A belief repeated for years begins to sound like truth, even when it has no power over someone willing to think differently. Every breakthrough starts with a different perspective. Before anything changes in the outside world, something changes in the mind. The moment you stop asking, "What am I allowed to do?" and start asking, "What's actually possible?" your entire outlook shifts. Suddenly obstacles become problems to solve instead of walls that stop you. Failure becomes information instead of defeat. Every challenge becomes an invitation to grow instead of a reason to quit. Thinking differently doesn't mean rejecting every rule, simply to appear rebellious. It means refusing to let fear decide what your future looks like. It means examining ideas instead of accepting them automatically. It means building principles that align with your values instead of borrowing expectations from people who have never lived your life. Many people remain trapped because they're more afraid of standing out than staying stuck. They know they're unhappy, but familiarity feels safer than uncertainty. They keep repeating routines that produce the same results while secretly hoping life will somehow become different. But change doesn't reward comfort. It rewards courage. Growth begins the moment you become willing to leave the familiar behind. One of the greatest prisons is the belief that everyone else's opinion should determine your next decision. Imagine giving hundreds of strangers the keys to your future. Every criticism changes your direction. Every compliment changes your confidence. Every rumor changes your identity. That's exhausting because you'll spend your entire life becoming whoever the crowd expects instead of discovering who you truly are. People who create their own path understand something important. Approval is temporary. Trends change. Crowds change. Public opinion changes. But character remains. Discipline remains. Purpose remains. If your foundation is built on those things, temporary judgment loses its power over your choices. There will always be people who say your vision is unrealistic because they measure your future using the limits of their own imagination. They don't necessarily want to harm you. They simply can't see beyond what they've experienced. Never allow someone else's limited perspective to become the ceiling over your potential. Their fears belong to them. They don't have to become yours. Creating your own path also requires accepting responsibility. Once you stop blaming circumstances, excuses become harder to make. You realize that while you can't control everything that happens, you can control your response, your effort, and your willingness to adapt. That realization is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it removes excuses. Liberating because it reminds you that your future isn't entirely decided by the past. The most successful journeys rarely look impressive at the beginning. They begin with quiet decisions repeated every day. Learning one new skill. Taking one more step. Recovering from one more setback. Ignoring one more distraction. Over time, those ordinary choices create extraordinary results. People often admire the destination while overlooking the countless moments of discipline that made it possible. Eventually, something remarkable happens. The same people who questioned your choices begin asking how you did it. They forget they once doubted the very path they now admire. They see the success, but not the sacrifice. They notice the confidence, but not the years of uncertainty that built it. That's the strange reward for refusing to follow a script that never fit you in the first place. So don't waste your life trying to become a perfect copy of someone else's expectations. Write your own story. Think your own thoughts. Walk your own road, even when it feels lonely. Because every unforgettable ending begins with someone bold enough to ignore the script everyone else was too afraid to challenge. And when they finally accuse you of playing by rules nobody else understands, let the corners of your mouth curl into that unmistakable Joker grin. Because the funniest trick was never breaking the game. It was making everyone realize there was never only one way to play it.